Let's mix it up on the day's other headlines here. Republicans accusing the president of playing the race card. And not in my backyard when it comes to green energy, wind farms specifically. The Kennedys apparently not so green right now. And a wily coyote gunned down by the governor of Texas. Was it a manly act or a cowardly one? We'll look at what gun he used and how he did it. But first up, the RNC accusing President Obama of pulling the race and social class cards from his deck in a video rallying Democrats for the midterm elections this fall. Take a look.
It will be up to each of you to make sure that the young people, African Americans, Latinos, and women who powered our victory in 2008 stand together once again.
The Washington Examiner stirring up some controversy following that video with a racy headline, Obama disses white guys. That after the video's release. And here to mix it up is our panel, editorial writer for the Washington Post, Jonathan Capehart, and editorial page editor for the Washington Examiner, Mark Tapscott. Like I said, one of my favorite pairs. Mark, the headline was in your paper. Do you stand by the headline?
Oh, absolutely. I think it said exactly what should be the issue and the point of the discussion. The president made a racial politics statement, and we called him on it.
Jonathan?
Oh, give me a break. Give me a break. We all know throughout the entire 2008 campaign, we were talking about the fact that the president's the then candidate's base was filled with people who didn't have a tradition of regularly voting. Young people, African Americans, Latinos probably don't fit in that category because they come out and vote. Women also in there. And so the president is only going to the people who it's been proven were the ones who came out and voted in 2008 who pushed him into office.
Can both be true? Can both be true?
Yes. Yes, both
can be. Could he be baiting white guys?
I see what you're saying.
See what I'm saying?
No.
In other words, could he be? Why not?
No, please. Well, the Washington Examiner headline is hyperbolic, and I hope it moved papers because I mean it's an interesting headline. But here's the thing: we saw what happened when the president and the Democratic Party didn't more forcefully go after African Americans and young people to come out and vote. We saw the Virginia governor's mansion go Republican, and we saw the New Jersey governor's mansion go Republican. And I think the White House and the Democratic Party and President Obama don't want that to happen again in the November election.
Let me ask you a question, Mark. What's the difference between a white politician courting the religious right or environmentalists or some contingency of white people because they believe that they have a voting bloc there, and somebody courting another contingency of people that are not white or not men? What's the distinction between courting the religious right, for instance, or environmentalists as a politician for votes, and courting non-whites or non-men? Well,
for one thing, as you just described it, a very significant percentage of the religious right happens to be African American. The fastest.
But that's not my question. In other words, what's the distinction between me saying as a politician, I think I can get a lot of guys on the religious right to vote for me, let's make sure they vote, or I think I can get a lot of minorities and women to vote for me, let's make sure they vote? Like, where's the distinction, I guess?
Well, the distinction is just as you described it. I don't have to say I want to go get all the white evangelical voters. I'm certainly not going to say that because I want all of the evangelical voters. The president made a mistake here. He described a political appeal in racial terms, and I'm sorry it makes Jonathan or Jason and other folks on the left uncomfortable, but that is racial politics.
Well, Mike, I think you're wrong. The president's not playing racial politics. The president's playing politics. He wants his base to come out and vote.
Yeah, let's move on.
Well, he certainly wants that.
All right, let's move on. The Obama administration approving our country's first offshore wind farm. You may have heard these stories. We apparently, and maybe you don't know this, own the Saudi Arabia of wind in the upper Midwest, along with the wind that flows across our oceans. This wind farm just happens to be a few miles off the lovely and beautiful summer resort in Massachusetts, Cape Cod. The folks that live there tend to own multi-million-dollar homes that overlook this soon-to-be wind farm, and needless to say, they are outraged. They say the farm, which would feature 130 wind turbines standing 440 feet tall, will, quote, ruin their pristine views. Among the critics who will have their views ruined, members of the Kennedy family who will be able to bear witness to this environmentally friendly energy source from their Hyannisport compound. Hypocrisy reigns supreme in this world. Jonathan Capehart, is this yet another case?
Well, yes, unfortunately, and you're seeing it all. We're seeing it all around the country. What's happening is you have people who, under other circumstances, are all about green
wind.
energy and such hot air and all sorts of other things. But what we're seeing is, folks don't want their views ruined, but they'll gladly take the electricity, I'm sure, that will come from these wind turbines.
Mark, can you be in favor of reform? It's almost like everybody in this country wants reform, whether it's Warren Buffett wants derivatives reform, but he wants a carve out so he doesn't have to post collateral, or people want energy reform, but they don't want the windmill. I'll go down the list. At what point are we going to stop denying our country the indulgence of its obvious hypocrisy on almost every issue?
Well, as long as we rely upon the federal government to do all of the things that we think it needs to do, we're going to have things like this happen because the federal government is controlled by those with the political power. You got a regulatory state, you're going to have favoritism, you're going to have crony capitalism, you're going to have politics.
Is there any circumstance under which we're not going to have that in your mind, Mark? How do you fix that?
Well, I think, for example, we might go back to the 10th Amendment in the Constitution and not let the federal government do all the things that it's been doing for the last many years. Let's try freedom again.
All right, listen, I think we're all in favor of freedom. This debate seems to be how we get there. Jonathan, Mark, a pleasure. I do appreciate it, gentlemen.